Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to our community. Our community is sponsored by I've Decided and the Greater Peoria Family YMCA. We're coming to you from the I've Decided studios here in Peoria, Illinois. I'm Andy Thornton, President and CEO of the Greater Peoria Family YMCA, and I'm glad that you're here joining us today. In a sea of billions, it's easy to feel like just another face in the crowd, but you aren't. Your individuality is more than a detail, it's your superpower. No one shares your exact perspective, your talents, or your dreams. This uniqueness isn't just chance, it's purposeful. The more you lean into it, the more you unlock the deep sense of fulfillment that comes from living authentically. On today's show, we're going to explore the beauty of embracing what sets you apart and how honoring your distinctiveness is critical to achieving your goals and dreams. But before we get into that, let me introduce Jim Barrack of Barrack's Hospitality Group. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Andy.
Thanks for being here today.
Well, it's a pleasure to be with you.
So tell our viewers and even myself a little bit about Barrack's Hospitality Group.
Wonderful. Well, my grandparents started in the food business in 1933. Some different cafes, restaurants. My father grew up in the business.
They started in Chillicothe. Did I read that?
Chillicothe, and then for a short time, then moved to downtown Peoria.
Okay.
And when my father started in the restaurant business, he went to chef training school, came back from that, liked the creativity of catering, started catering from the restaurant, and then eventually in the early 70s closed the restaurant down and went strictly to catering.
Oh, wow.
He just had a building that was on Knoxville and Ravine. It was just a kitchen. And when you prepare food in the kitchen and you deliver it, it's called off-premise catering.
Okay.
And he did that for quite some time until I got to the age, my early teens, and started working with him and actually catered my first party when I was 13 years old because he had another event he had to be at.
What was the party? Do you remember it?
I do. It was a company called Klaus Radio in Pioneer Parkway.
Okay.
And I grilled steaks for a dinner, and they all came out perfectly.
How many people?
I think it was around 35 people.
And you were 13 years old?
And I was 13 years old.
Wow.
And I had done it several times with my father.
Sure.
So that's kind of kicked off my career in food service and worked with them throughout, my teenage years and then full time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the, we looked at a building on Pioneer Parkway. Yep. In 1987, we opened up the first bank facility in Peoria.
And that's where you currently exist today, right?
Currently been there 37 years. And it truly was the first banquet facility in Peoria. If you wanted to host a banquet or a wedding or any type of an event, you had to rent out a hotel.
Yeah.
So at Pioneer Park was the first banquet facility in Central Illinois. Big communities in the country had banquet facilities. And my father knew that and had the dream to open up one. And in 87, we did that. And of course, now we do, 10 times the business that we did in 1987 with the growth over the years and have added so many different venues to our business line.
So you do both on-site and off-site now, right?
Correct. Only 20% of my business is in the building on Pioneer Parkway.
Okay.
Because we have formed relationships with other facilities in the area to be able to either be exclusive at that venue or to be a preferred caterer at that venue.
Okay.
So we currently have Eastport Banquet Center at Eastport Marina.
All right.
Is one of my exclusive accounts. Stony Creek Inn Hotel. It started off 25 years ago when they first opened up as one of 3 caterers. And 2 years ago, they wanted to transition to utilizing only Barracks.
Mm-hmm.
The Packard Plaza, which is next to the Mark Twain Hotel, we manage that building for banquets. Plus, there's many facilities that we're constantly catering at that we're preferred at. The Peoria Riverfront Museum, Venue Chiska, which Venue Chiska has opened a new facility.
And that's down in the warehouse district,
correct.
Isn't it? Okay.
Right. And the owner of that purchased the Kickapoo Creek Winery.
Oh, wow.
And that's going to open up next month called Olive and Oak.
Cool.
And there's a Trailside Event Center at Trusker's.
Mm-hmm.
We also have, there's a place called Marlene's that's popular for weddings. Haven on the Farm on
Wow.
Route 150, the Cannery in Eureka. So all those places are very popular for weddings, which weddings are big business.
Yeah,
We'll do 120, 130 weddings a year.
Wow.
Um,
That is
so that's
lot.
vital part of our business is the wedding industry.
You're doing a lot more than I realize, and I'm sure than a lot of people out there would even imagine too. That's a lot of work.
It is
A lot of food.
And we still do catering for, corporate. Corporate's a big part of our business for corporate, breakfasts, lunches at their own facility or one of our venues. We also feed some schools. We have a High Road School by the Civic Center. We feed them 5 days a week for lunch.
Wow.
St. Edward's in Chillicothe. Twice a week we feed lunch to the kids.
Catholic school there? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Last month we started St. Patrick's in Washington.
Okay.
Lunch 4 days a week.
Wow.
And then there's a daycare in Kickapoo called Embrace Daycare. Yeah. And we feed them breakfast and lunch 5 days a week.
Wow. So is there ever a day in the week where Barracks is not in operation? I would guess no.
Usually 7 days a week we're doing something.
Maybe Christmas, some few holidays where you're not.
Yeah, we do stay closed Christmas Day and Thanksgiving.
Mm. Wow. Well, that's a lot. I didn't realize that you guys were doing that much. So was the building on Pioneer Parkway, and we'll jump into the article here in just a second, but was it built for the business, or was it something else before?
It was actually two different businesses that went vacant.
Okay.
There was a dress shop in the front of the building and a bar restaurant in the back.
Okay.
And there was actually a block wall that went up through the roof, stuck up through the roof. So that was taken out to open it to one large room. And then we have some partition walls so we can divide it to do two events at the same time.
Okay.
So it's very versatile that way. But we have 8 catering vehicles and 3 catering trailers that we can use for events. Mm-hmm. Most of our catering work is done within an hour drive. Central Illinois, I do have a few clients that are outside that area that we do take care of. We have a really good client base, and a lot of our business is repeat business. A high percentage of our business is repeat business in the corporate. In the corporate line.
Now, once you're on the other side of the ledger and you're hiring, a catering company, when you find somebody you're satisfied with, you tend to stay with them. I could see that.
Sure.
For sure, because you want to know that you've got confidence in the people that are providing that service for you, right? Because if you're entertaining people and you need to have good quality food and service. So I could see where repeat business is a big part of your operation.
One other account that we do have is OSF. Okay. Prior to COVID, we took food to 5 different OSF buildings.
Oh, wow.
And they in turn sold it to their staff for lunch.
Oh.
And then after COVID, only one remained open, is the OSF building on Pioneer Parkway.
Okay.
And just recently, we transitioned to, instead of dropping off, now I provide a staff person to stay there during their lunch hour.
Okay.
And feed, it could be 50 to a couple hundred people a day.
Wow.
For snacks and lunch.
Is that the old K's merchandise?
Correct.
Right next door to you guys then. Right?
Yes.
Awesome. Well, that's great stuff. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into this conversation around embracing your distinctiveness. I think it's interesting that you're here today, because I think to be effective and successful in your work, you've got to create some distinctiveness for your business, right? Something that stands out, that makes you a little bit different when you're in the hospitality industry. I would think that would be important, right? You want to stand out in the way that you do your business. But for a lot of people, I think being distinct could present a challenge, because most people, and I'm guilty of this too, I just like to blend in. Now, it's hard for me to blend in, Jim, because I'm 6'7", 250 pounds. I usually stand out like a sore thumb in just about every crowd that I'm in. But my natural instinct is just to kind of blend in, right? Not draw attention to myself. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. And when you think about being successful in business or just successful in general, I think it's important for us to embrace what's distinct about us, right? And kind
Sure.
of lean into that work so that it helps us to stand out and become more successful. So can you talk about things that you've done in the hospitality industry that you're in that have kind of positioned Barracks to stand out a little bit? What does that look like for you?
Well, in our industry, the two things that we offer is food and service.
Right.
Okay, the food, being in the food business for such a long time, and my father growing up in the food business, food was very important, that you provided food that tasted good.
Right.
People have to enjoy the food or forget everything else, right?
That's right.
So, we have a set of menus and recipes that we prepare things certain ways, the quality of the product that we use.
Mm-hmm.
So really you have to look at your food and making sure that, that's number one. If you got good food, that's your first step. Your second step is obviously your service. Now we offer drop-off service. We offer, we'll bring the food, set it up. We'll have one person stay with it.
Mm-hmm.
We offer different levels. Could be foam plates, very nice looking plastic plates, or full china, linens, glassware. Mm-hmm. It can be full service where you have banquet servers that will stay
Right.
and actually serve food at the tables or pick up food at the tables. It's really a full service if the customer wants that. So there's those different levels of service that we offer. We can also offer event planning. On big events, I've worked with a client with providing tenting, rental items of tables and chairs.
So do you provide those types of materials then, or do you get them from someone else?
Most of the time using a rental company.
Okay.
If it's a big outdoor event, I've done some really large outdoor events.
Sure.
Where you had to, have the tenting.
Sure.
For the food, tenting for the guests,
Mm-hmm.
Porta potties, lighting,
all of that
sound
stuff.
system, the tables, the chairs, the linens. We have specialty linens that we can also rent.
So even beyond the providing the meal and the
Mm-hmm.
food and even the service to it, you've got a division of your business that is, hey, we can help you plan this
Correct.
thing to make sure
Correct.
that you don't forget anything.
Sure.
As part of that. Would you consider that to be unique in the hospitality industry, in the line of work that you're doing?
Well, not. I would say not most, but there are some caterers that just provide the basics.
Mm-hmm.
And then I've had many times where the customer will say, well, I want to have china, but I guess I'm going to have to go rent it. And so, no, you don't have to do that. We can provide that service for you. We can, I have arrangements with, I've provided wedding officiants for weddings that really needed that service. So I have a network that I can use to call on if I need a specialty linen. I have basic linens that we provide in-house, white, black, ivory, but chair covers and sashes and centerpieces, they come in so many different varieties and colors, and there's really many, many options on those. So I can pull in, partners
Gotcha.
to take care of those things.
Okay.
So, but getting back to the service end of it, as I said, there's different levels of service that a client needs at their event.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing that we've been successful with is having a great team, at our company. And it really takes employees that care about what they do, give it the actual personal touch. It starts, in our office with our sales staff. Mm-hmm. Because they're the first contact, taking the emails, phone calls, in-person meetings, and talking to that client and offering our services to them. And that's where it starts, and then it transitions into the day of the event when they see the event staff, the chefs there, the uniforms that they're wearing, and how they take care of our customers.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I'm very proud of. Number one, we have a great team. I've always told my staff, team stands for together, everyone achieves more.
Right.
And you have to, it takes a team to put on an event,
Yeah.
whether it's a corporate banquet, a
Mm-hmm.
birthday party, or a wedding reception.
Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, Barracks has been in existence for a little over 90 years, right? You're coming up on your 100th birthday, and I've heard that in the community, the effectiveness of and the quality of service that your team provides. So what is it about Barracks that may be different in approaching your work that way and helping create that culture of team and connectivity between, like you said, you have your sales staff, you have your catering staff, and there's probably other elements of and everybody has to be working together,
Sure.
right, in order for that to be successful. So are there some things that you can talk about that you think maybe unique or distinct to how you guys go about doing your business that does kind of set you apart that way, because you do have a good reputation?
Yeah, I mean, it starts with your hiring process. You want to find staff that are going to fit into your company.
Mm-hmm.
But we have quite a few staff that have been with us for a long time. We feel that, we're kind of a family.
Sure.
You get to know someone very well. And personally, I try to do what I can to help my employees, when they have issues, personal issues. And if I can help in any way, I try to do that, and that's important, I think. We have quite a diverse staff.
Right.
Your dishwashers, or your bartenders, your kitchen staff with your chefs and prep. They're all a little bit different, and I'm very involved in the business. I think as an owner, I think you have to be involved in the business and constantly watch over things and be there to answer questions. And you just can't sit in the office. I'm never sitting at my desk longer than an hour, I think, and interacting with them. Obviously, I can't be at all the events, but, I do try to pop into some of the events. So, they see me, they know I care. And I think that gives them a sense of, working hard and taking care of our clients as well.
Yeah, and I think what I'm picking up on when you're describing, or what I'm imagining in my head, is that, I mean, you're obviously invested in the business. It's a third generation, I think, right? And you show up with your team, right? And so leadership matters, in success in any industry, really, or any line of work. It starts with who the leader is and how committed they are. Because if you didn't show up, why would other people care? Why would the servers care if Jim doesn't really care and doesn't show up? And I think that matters, and that may be a little bit of the uniqueness that Barracks provides that maybe others don't. Is kind of that personal touch, and you alluded to it a little bit before about how you care for your employees, and when there's a challenge that they're going through, you're going to step in and try to provide some support.
Sure,
that's important.
They see me doing things as working in the business, things that I don't have to do.
Right.
But if I am at an event and they need my help for a few minutes, I pitch in and help.
You're not afraid to bust a table?
Not afraid to bust a table. When you own your own business, you have to do a little bit of everything. I try to sometimes I have to do some repairs of myself. You can't always wait, an hour or 3 hours for a plumber. Sometimes you have to take care of something. Yeah. As I'm walking around, you've heard of management by walking around, and I'm walking through, and, someone has a question, I'll answer their question.
Right.
I check in with the kitchen staff, walk around to the dishwashers and say hi to them. And, if there's something they need, I help them out. Yeah. So really, you have to be involved in the business.
Yeah. You show up on purpose. Right. We've all heard that you show up on purpose. People, you're there. You're not there just to make money, right? You're there. It's a part of what you do, and that's real. But you're there to make sure that your people are getting what they need so that they can be effective in their role, and that has a lot of value. That's good. Another part of the conversation that Kim created in her article this week was around tapping into or understanding what your unique purpose is. And I'll ask you the question: have you ever just purposefully evaluated the things that make you happy? Have you ever thought about that? And I would imagine that I'm not going to answer for you, but there's probably some of that you just described in your business. You're probably at peace and find a lot of joy in doing what you're doing. But can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, in the business, you're taking care of most of the time events that are memorable for the client. Happy times, weddings, anniversaries, birthdays. We do take care of funerals frequently. In fact, I have one tonight for 200 people.
Oh, wow.
One of my good clients that comes every year for their Christmas party, one of the founding owners passed away.
Oh, wow.
And the daughter, who's vice president of the company, called me on my cell phone last week, and I was there to help her out and take care of it. But it's really rewarding when you can be there for the client and at the happy time or the time they need comfort with the funeral, but you're sharing in that memorable occasion. And I can't tell you how many emails and letters and notes and phone calls that we receive just saying, hey, you did a fantastic job, your service was great, the food was outstanding, we definitely always going to use Barrack's. And that's really rewarding.
Sure.
When you can take care of that client and they're very appreciative of what you've done. There are those events that you can do a little bit extra in the setup, the decor, and you kind of step back and look at it and say, hey, that's, we really did a nice job on that. Throughout the years, I've gone to different catering conferences and, pick up new ideas.
Sure.
And I try to travel frequently as well, just to kind of keep my eyes open to see what's out there. And so there's
constantly learning.
Yeah, there's learning, and there's certain things that we do, serving things in martini glasses, for example, that people really enjoy that. They remember that.
Yeah, it stands out.
And it stands out. Right. Yeah.
So the family business has been around for 90 plus years. You described earlier where you did your first event on your own when you were 13 years old. Have you ever thought about doing anything different?
When I was a teenager, I had a cousin in California that started a mobile CAT scan units.
Yeah.
And he had asked if I had any interest in that. And I think I was maybe graduating from high school, or I just graduated, and I did give it some thought. But at the time, I liked working with my father and saw that there was a need for catering. So I did give it some thought. He's become a multi-millionaire now. So it probably would have been a little easier life.
Mobile CAT scan units, and this was probably in the 70s, 80s?
Yeah, early 80s. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was some new technology back then, I'll bet.
Yeah, he's done very well with it.
So you may have just answered my next question, but when did you realize that serving others in the hospitality industry was your calling? Right? I'll use that term.
Yeah, probably at that time, because I did start working with my father at a very young age, and through my teens, but when I started working full time, it just I enjoyed it,
right?
And some of the things I've talked about before, seeing customers enjoy your food and service, and really enjoyed that. And but I'm always looking for new things as well. You have to, in business, kind of keep that open mind, and always looking for opportunities that might come up. You hear something and you just I have many examples of that. The daycare that called me, and that she had started off with maybe 10 kids, and I wasn't sure, maybe this is not something for us, because you can't really do much with 10.
Right.
But I did start it, and then it grew a little bit more, and now we're doing 42 meals for breakfast and lunch.
Wow.
So and she's potentially going to increase another classroom for that. there's just all those different examples of things like that with.
Well, in the
hearing
partnership,
about-
I would imagine in that specific situation, the partnership with you has
Mhm.
given her the freedom to think about where she's good, which is in the daycare setting, right? Not having to worry about what am I going to do for breakfast and lunch every day. That's taken care of. Jim's got that covered, so I can focus on, pouring into these kids in a different way.
Sure.
So that was one of the things. Go ahead if you got another thought.
Just like hearing about new venues that open up.
Yeah.
And sometimes I take the initiative and contact them. It's of interest. And Haven on the Farm opened up in the past year, and I contacted her early on and looked at her plans for the bank facility. She asked me a lot of questions and took my advice on a few things.
Because you've seen some stuff over the years, right?
Sure. So she would call me from time to time about that. So it's a new facility that we've done several weddings at now already. There's another facility, as I mentioned, at Venue Chiska, and the owner just purchased the Kickapoo Creek Winery.
Yeah.
And I've already met with her several times and been out to the facility, and we're able to buy some of the equipment that was there. We can keep some of our equipment at the location to make it easier for us to cater events there.
Wow.
And I've actually done some marketing on our end to help promote it for corporate clients. So I try to take those opportunities and run with them if I can.
Yeah, I think part of this whole tapping into your unique purpose is you have to understand where you're strong, and then where you're weak, right? And be able to create the collaborations and the partnerships in the way that you're describing that benefit both entities. And you talked about it a little bit earlier on, where you've expanded your business by providing planning for events, partnering with other providers who can provide tents and things like that to really cover the whole gamut of the resources that are needed. But you're not providing all of that necessarily yourself. You're bringing other assets to the table to help with that event, because you might not. That's not necessarily your strength, but it's a needed product, right? And I think that's an important part of growth and success, is knowing where are you strong, focus on those areas, and look for help in the areas where you're not weak, and build those partnerships and things like that. That's what I'm hearing you describe, which I think is really important.
Yeah, we've been able to, especially on the weddings, offer 2 levels of service, with a very beautiful hard plastic plates, and a silver or gold plasticware that has a hammered look to it. And then having also the full china glassware. And, we have quite a few of our weddings that choose to, they can save a few dollars that way. It still looks beautiful.
Right.
And, we're not losing that part of the market that, so we can, and plus offering, different levels in the food of your basics things, but also if somebody wants your prime rib or filet mignon, we can do that as well. I have a wedding this weekend that they're using the taco bar for their wedding. They just want it more casual, and we've done that many times.
Yeah.
One other thing that we haven't talked about, COVID obviously was quite a challenge, because you pretty much had to close down the business because you couldn't have groups together, right?
Hard to serve people.
It was a difficult time, but through COVID, we started doing curbside meals, where we offered lunch and evening meals a few times a week, and that kind of kept my few of my full-time staff, something for them to stay busy with, and it's kept our name out in the public as well. We also, during that time, you're a fellow Rotarian, and our Rotary Club, some of their members donated their meals. And we also, I came up with the idea of taking some donations. We called it Feed the Fight. And during that time, we were able to produce food and deliver it to OSF and many other charities in the area that fed people.
Yeah.
So we did that through a lot of donations through Rotary and other clients of mine that made donations.
So you've been able to adapt your business model as challenges have been thrown at you.
But what's nice about that came out of that is that the curbside meals that we still offer.
You still do that, don't you?
Every Wednesday, most Wednesdays, a curbside pickup, and you can order through our Facebook or off our website. There's a link, and you order, and we produce it in individual boxes for $13. And the menus change every week, and you pull up to the entrance door in Pioneer Park, and we bring it right to your car.
Is that still popular?
We feed 60 to 100 people every Wednesday night. Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty cool. So the last section that we want to talk about here is around the fulfillment that we find when we live distinctly. Here's a question for you. What would you describe as the most courageous thing that you've done in your line of work? You're carrying out a family legacy, right? And I'm sure that the legacy of Barrack's Catering is going to live long past you, I would imagine. But what do you think's been, maybe it's COVID, maybe you already talked about it, the most courageous thing that you've done? Because that was a big challenge for all of us.
That was very challenging. Over the years, there's been, kind of where you want to step out of your comfort zone.
Sure.
There was a time when I met with Wildlife Prairie Park, and they were looking to replace all their food service. And went into the meeting and told them, yeah, we can handle that. And I left the meeting with my manager, and I'm like, what did we just agree to? But we took care of their food service 100% for 11 years. And that was a huge undertaking. Now we have them as one of our preferred vendors. Yeah. So venues. So we do weddings out there frequently.
Wow.
And other meetings. Stony Creek Inn was another one that at the early years, 25 years ago, came and said, we're going to need a couple of caterers. And, we started with the very first caterer to do events there. And of course now we're the sole provider for food service. So there's accounts like that you weren't too sure about, but you kind of take a leap of faith and take a risk and do it. The Civic Center had contacted us a few months ago and said they were interested in dealing with a second caterer. Yeah. And I said, well, we're very busy. There's times when we probably could accommodate you. And then last week we were able to feed a group for 3 days and fed 650 people. Wow. And they called again today for next week for 1 day for a smaller group.
Yeah, you can take on some big projects down there. There's some big events with hundreds of people that take.
I want to make sure if we're going to be able to do it, we're going to be successful.
Do it well, right?
Yeah. And I'm not going to overburden my staff with it too. So they have an understanding. That there's times.
Do you ever tell people no?
Oh, many times. Yeah. Our Saturdays,
that's a hard thing to do, I'll bet.
In the catering business, Saturdays are your biggest day of the week.
Sure.
And I think last year and again this year, we have at least 30 days in the calendar marked off as no more.
Yeah. We're full.
We're full.
Right.
I think there's already a couple of Saturdays in December that we're already full with Christmas events, because the Christmas is a very
busy time.
Holiday season.
I'm sure a lot of Christmas parties and things like that, especially if you think about the corporate world. But do you ever think about and consider the inspiration that you give to others by the way that you approach your life or your work?
I don't really think about it too much. Helping other people. Obviously, it makes you feel good if you can help someone. And I've always felt that I try to be helpful to my employees in their personal lives if they asked for it. Yep. I've tried to help them out as much as I could. So it's something that can be make feel good feeling.
Sure. Sure. Well, I think it's important, when we're talking about this whole idea of living distinctly and identifying our uniqueness and being intentional about living that way, that's when we live that way, I think that's an important byproduct of how it impacts others. Others see that. Others, I think, draw energy from that and can learn from that. So I think that that's something that, I hear you speaking humbly about that, which is great. But I'm sure that those people that work for you that have been there for so long are there because of the way they're being treated, right? And that's an important skill set for people to think about that. Because when you live with intentionality and you live to serve others in that way, that produces a lot of success in ways that I don't think we always appreciate or understand or even think about, because it's not why we're doing it necessarily. But that's a good thing about living life that way. So this is great. Thank you for being here today. It's been a great conversation, and I've really enjoyed it. I've gotten to learn a little bit more about Jim and about Barracks, and didn't realize you were that busy. That's a great thing. So thank you, everyone, for joining us today, and we will look forward to seeing you next time here on Our Community.